Hello, neighbors. Hi, friends. Thanks for allowing me to do this early tonight. I have a commitment later, so yep, I had to do this early. So I understand if some of you can't join, but thanks for being here. We'll talk about some agenda items that we have for tomorrow. It's budget season. There's a lot going on. Thank you all for being here. Note that our work session does start at 4:30 tomorrow instead of 5 because we will be having our first discussion as a commission of the budget of the fiscal year 26 budget estimate. So that's been proposed to us. We've heard presentations from all of our departments at our budget workshops, and so tomorrow will be our first open discussion as a board. So if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have concerns about anything, you can give comments on that agenda item. That's actually agenda item number 5 tomorrow at 5:45 when we stop for public comments, or you'll be able to give those comments at the end of our regular meeting for items not on that agenda because we won't be voting tomorrow. Just having our first discussion. We won't have our first vote on the budget till probably, or expectedly, the next May meeting, so May 20th, and then we'll have our final vote early June unless something happens and we need to have another meeting and push that out to that second June meeting, just as long as it's done by June 30th. So. First item on the agenda tomorrow for discussion in the work session is the just renewing our contract with McKamey. There was about a 3% increase, which is common across, renewing annual contracts. So it went up from about $79,000 a year to $83,448. And then the whole contract is in our budget, or in our work session packet if you want to check that out for finer details. Item number 2 here is authorize an actuarial study at a cost of $400 for the Hazardous Duty supplemental retirement benefit with TCRS. So typically you wouldn't see something that was only $400 coming before the commission for approval. There's statute, state law, that allows a lot of expenses that are under $10,000 to be decided upon by the city manager and staff without having to come before the board. However, TCRS, which is the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System, which we participate with, requires that this study be voted on by the commission. So it's just a study of to find out what the costs and risks, potential risks associated with not paying out benefits to our hazardous duty employees. So that's our firefighters and our police officers. I asked why that didn't include our public works employees as first responders, and that's just how the statute is written, unfortunately. When it pertains to this, public works employees are not included. But they'll be doing a study to determine what the costs would be associated with that if we add that as a benefit to folks who are vested in our retirement system. So this is just for the study, not actually to pay out any of the benefits just yet. We would have to vote on that later. Item number 3. Approve expenses of $66,828 for Cadence site work to make guardrail repairs. So we actually budgeted for this in last year's budget. We're just now getting around to it, which is kind of neat because, in case you missed it at one of our recent meetings, our public works director talked about how we just found out that one of the new businesses that have come into our city in one of the spaces up in northern Red Bank that's renovated and really improved some of the dilapidated buildings up here is a guardrail business. So we are actually contracting with a guardrail business that's in Red Bank to do these guardrail repairs at Greenleaf, West Newberry Street, Victoria Street, at Dayton Boulevard and O'Reilly's, Woodrow Avenue, and Easton Avenue. I don't think that's all of them, but that's where we're getting started. Item number 4 is kind of a big deal. This has gotten pushed back and pushed back and pushed back because we just have not had time in our work session for this presentation to happen, but this is our pool audit presentation. This report was actually released to us in November, and like I said, we've been trying to get it, and we've had it on our agenda multiple times, and it's gotten pushed back because we just didn't have enough time in our work session to discuss it. So it's definitely happening tomorrow, and it's a pretty big deal because our pool was built in 1962. So it is, what is that, 63 years old, and it had some renovations done in 2016, but most of the data that they compiled is showing significant costly repairs that are needed if we're going to keep it there, like hundreds of thousands into the millions of dollars. But also if you're talking about like a brand new pool, that can be millions and millions of dollars. So we're going to have a really serious discussion about what that's going to look like over the next few years, and if that's something we want to prioritize keeping in Red Bank, or what we're going to do, if we might be able to access grant funding to help offset some of those costs. So yeah, if you want to tune in for that discussion, there are lots of pictures and data points if you want to look in the work session packet that's online already. And then item number 5, like I told you, we're going to be talking about the budget proposal, so tune in for that. But if you do have questions, make sure you're there in person tomorrow and you'll be able to ask those. Item number 6 is Red Bank Citizen Scholarship Award. I'm really excited about this. We started this last year. Vice Mayor Holly Berry started this last year, and we are continuing it forward. Worked with Red Bank High School principal and staff to identify a student who matched the qualities of leadership, volunteerism, and academics. And so we will be talking about and voting to award that recognition to a Red Bank High School student, and that also will come with a $500 scholarship as long as that person provides us with their enrollment information in a post-secondary program. So it can be a trade school, it can be college, it can be any number of things, but they have to provide that enrollment, and then they get that $500 check, and I just am very excited to talk about that. Item number 7 is proclaiming May 4th through the 10th as the 56th Annual Municipal Clerks Week. We have awesome court clerk, and her assistant is great and amazing, so I'm grateful to be able to recognize them and the work they do in our court system. Item number 8 is also very exciting, very big, a very big deal. It is approving the Bicycle Blvd CMAQ, which is Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Grant. So we can contract for engineering services with Barge Design Solutions. So that total cost, okay, this is like a long story, but we actually were notified that we were going to receive this grant back in 2022, so over 3 years ago. But then they didn't have the funds because TDOT promised on some of their grant funds, so it kind of got rolled out. So they're finally ready to award those funds to us, which means we can finally get started on the Red Bank Bicycle Blvd. This initial portion is for all of the design work, engineering services, the environmental studies, right-of-way, research, inspection services, all of that stuff. So that's going to be, the total cost of the project is right now at $766,920. $455,000 of that is budgeted for all of the engineering, pre-design, pre-study, research costs associated with that, and then the remainder, which is a little just under $312,000, will actually be used for construction of the Bicycle Blvd, including wayfinding signage. We're also, one of the biggest kind of hoops we have to jump through, and we just don't know how that conversation is going to go. But that's going to be a piece, is communicating with the railroad, because there's 3 portions of the Bicycle Boulevard as the concept was originally drawn out that actually crosses over the railroad. So there would be a gap there if we are not able to come up with some kind of agreement with the railroad to access right-of-way there. So cross your fingers, because we would love to have a fully connected route there once we get started on that actual construction. But yeah, I'm really excited. So it only took 3 years, but it's happening. Yay! And item number 9 is amending our Red Bank fee schedule ordinance. This is because right now, all of our fees that we have, if you want to reserve the community center, if you want to pay for like a business permit, if you have court fees, all of these are like all over the place. They're in all different places in different parts of our municipal code. That's like 700 pages long. So what we're trying to do is our staff have been really awesomely working on this. They're going to compile everything into like an inclusive document that has all of our fees in one place. Yay! Efficiency, transparency, accessibility. Amazing. So we have to amend the ordinance first so that we can adopt a fee schedule that is all-inclusive. So we'll be doing that, and then we'll adopt that resolution of the new fee schedule in the next couple of months. And then item number 10, there's a public hearing and first reading to abandon unopened right-of-way on Old Morrison Springs Road. So in case you guys haven't noticed, there's a big parcel that's there when you come off the 27 ramp, kind of like by where Erlanger is, between Erlanger and where the pool and community center and all that is. There's been construction trucks there forever and ever and ever. It was split up into parcels, but the current owner bought all of those parcels, but contained in those parcels, there's an unused right-of-way that's never been opened. It's just grass. You can't even tell that it's there. But technically, we do own that. So we would have to abandon that so that the developer could proceed with their project on that parcel. So we'll be talking about that. That's a public hearing, and then there's 2 votes on that before that's actually fully abandoned. One of the things that's included in the ordinance, is that we retain all rights to oversee any kind of stormwater mitigation or management that must happen there, because it is off the slope of Godsey Ridge down there. So we that was part of the condition of us abandoning that right-of-way. And then final item is a beer board meeting. We have the owner of La Delicia who is making an application for an on-premise beer permit for La Delicia. So yay! We'll be hearing from him. He only speaks Spanish, so he'll have an interpreter with him. We'll go through that whole process with him, and hopefully get him a beer permit so he can start selling beer. And that's it. Do you guys have any questions? If not, we have, like I said, we'll have our first discussion tomorrow about the budget. If it requires another maybe special called meeting or something, we could do that. We can do that with like 3 days notice or something like that. Or we'll just have more robust conversation at our next meeting, which is May the 20th, before we do our first vote on the budget. And then second vote in June. So just make sure you're tuning in for that. If you have questions, comments, concerns about anything that we've talked about in our budget presentations that our departments have asked for, we are looking at a projected use of fund balance this year. I think it's it's about $600,000. We do have the fund balance there, but a lot of that, some of that is a one-time expenditures, but not all of that. So we're going to have to talk about what that looks like moving forward. Inflation is real. Costs of labor and materials and contract services go up every year. Like I said, we're voting on an increase in our contract with McKamey, because that happens every year. So if we're not keeping up with that, it's really easy to fall behind. So we'll be having that conversation with the budget, and then also with the reappraisal. Once we get our certified tax rate back from the state, then in probably August, we'll be having a discussion about our tax rate. So just stay tuned for that. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to go. Let you guys have a great rest of your evening. And if you do have questions, you know where to find me. Good night.